Welcome to the Dr. Truth Show. It is May 19th, and we are almost into summer, which is amazing. We're literally starting to get really into our high heat season here in Miami, which is kind of interesting because we don't really have anything but summer. It's just starting to get much, much warmer. I think it's going to be a good experience now for most people to have summer across the world, at least the Northern Hemisphere. And I think people are super excited for that. So I'm in my office today, and the reason why I'm doing the podcast this afternoon, and it's been a while, I have been kind of fighting a COVID-related issue, and that issue is that during COVID in October, I had severe pneumonia. I had bilateral pneumonia from COVID, and it was real. It was not the flu. It was the real deal. It was actually COVID. And what happened was that I had to go on steroids. And the steroids, unfortunately, were pretty severe, and it caused a type of reaction that sometimes can happen inside the bone. And that reaction is called AVN. And AVN is a very special type of destructive process that occurs when the bone essentially starts to necrose, starts to die. Vascular supply that feeds the femur head, which is part of the long bone of the leg, becomes inflamed because it's not getting adequate oxygen, and then that causes a reaction and causes the bone to want to break down. And what I've learned is it's pretty rare. It's not something that you see very often. Doctors probably, on the whole, I would say, maybe 20 or 30,000 cases a year, supposedly, in the United States. That could change because of the COVID, but I don't know. I've never seen a case of it, and I've been in medical practice now for almost 30 years, and I have not seen a case myself. So, but the interesting thing is that there is going to be a procedure that I will go under this coming Thursday, and it's called EBO2, which is extracorporeal oxygen perfusion. And the second procedure, which is going to be a stem cell therapy injection into the hip and the joint space to help improve circulation and improve the bone substructure. So getting back to AVN causes the bone to break down, and because of the weight placed onto the bone over time, it causes microfractures. These microfractures are occurring inside my bone on my left hip that I can feel, and it's quite painful to walk. I can still bike ride and swim, but walking or doing any sort of minor lifting the body up out of a chair or off the bed, that kind of thing can be very painful. So it's an experience I've never had before. So, having basically chronic pain and not being able to really do too much for it is it's a sort of eye-opening experience. But the procedure that I'm going to go under on Thursday will hopefully benefit blood supply into the hip and help the hip actually repair itself. So EBO2 is kind of a curious procedure. It takes your blood basically out of your body using a dialysis type of machine, what they use for hemoperfusion. And then blood is then filtered through a dialysis filter, a long white filter that one could even actually see the blood go through. And then that blood is ozonated, and then it's UV irradiated. And then it goes back through the machine and into another arm. So one arm the blood comes out of, the other arm the blood goes into, and in between is the machine. So this is fairly new, and Dr. Parada is the doctor that is one of the progenitors of this device, and it will be interesting. I'm going to be very hopeful that it will detox some of the impurities in my system, heavy metals, mercury, cholesterol, things that maybe I've collected over the years. Even some microbes might come out of me. And with the fact that I've had COVID, supposedly this helps those that have had COVID and had remnants of COVID left in them. So we'll see. But that's part of the reason why I have not been proactive with the podcast, which I think are important. And I think that there are people that do listen to them. And there's so many of them out there now. I don't even know how you'd keep track, but I'm trying to bring a certain level of authenticity to the medical field that I think is lacking. So the second topic I want to get into, and this is all extemporaneous. I don't plan any of this out really. I used to think that it would be important to create a script and go through that. And I think it's just all about being very conscious in a free flow method. And in doing that provides the audio listener a much more authentic and conversational sort of experience. So that's what we're doing. So the second topic is COVID and vaccines. And we had not had vaccines in the office until about 2 weeks ago. And not to say that that's good or bad. It just means that they were unavailable to doctors, but they were available to Walgreens and CVS and some of the other larger big box pharmacies and even smaller pharmacies. So I'm not sure why that was the case, but that was what went on. And we unfortunately, don't have any real knowledge provided to us regarding the vaccines. The vaccines come basically in a nondescript cardboard box. They show up on the door. They are usually on dry ice, and there is a packing slip, but no other instructions. The actual vaccine box that we put into the refrigerator has an insert, and all vaccines, in fact, all medicines come with an insert that is very detailed in almost everything regarding the vaccine, where it came from, what's in it, how to dilute it, dispense it, how it's administered, what the side effects are, all kinds of things like that, where the manufacturing process occurred and the transport and all of that. Well, these vaccines do not come with any of that. They actually come with the insert folded up, and it's just a blank piece of paper, which is unbelievable. So as a practitioner of medicine with a license and all the good stuff, we are getting vaccines from companies that do not distribute information it's vital for us to know, to talk to the patient and to be able to know what to do with the vaccine. So it's interesting. I've never seen that before. So that's one of the components regarding vaccines for COVID. The second, so there are 3 vaccines, and I'm just going to go through them quickly. There's the Pfizer vaccine, which is a messenger RNA vaccine. There's the Moderna vaccine, which is also a messenger RNA. And then there's Johnson & Johnson, which is actually made by Janssen, which is a Johnson & Johnson subsidiary. So it actually is not coming directly from Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson is the mother company, and the other company makes it. So what's interesting, okay, so the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a adenovirus platform, meaning that it is a vector platform using an adenovirus, which is a virus, and they incorporate into the virus proteins for COVID. So then when you inoculate the person with that particular vaccine, which is a true vaccine, by the way, that I would say virus vector, the adenovirus, causes an infection into the system, which then produces the protein for the antibody to attack, which is supposedly the spike protein. So the body is creating an antibody antigen complex, which then, if it does see the real spike protein from COVID, it's going to do something for it. Okay, so that's number one. That's a traditional vaccine. It's an attenuated version of the COVID spike protein that is transported through the adenovirus. It's adenovirus 26. It's a species of the adenovirus they use in the lab to do that. Now, with regard to the Pfizer's completely different than this. It's not the same. The Moderna is similar to Pfizer, so they're not vaccines. They really shouldn't be calling them vaccines. They're gene therapies. Okay, so gene therapies are different. They're novel. They're completely new. And in fact, all of the vaccines are using emergency use authorization. So emergency use authorization, it's an EUA, allows the manufacturer to produce these vaccines and messenger RNA gene therapies without any liability. All right, so that's a side story, but they come, you kind of under this emergency use, and doctors and hospitals, basically get these things, and they're new, and we've never used them before, and we're told, hey, they're safe. Okay, so that's what we're administering. So the Moderna and Pfizer use messenger RNA, which is a protein. It's not per se part of the virus. It's a component protein that is almost like you would call it software. So that RNA software is put into a syringe, injected into your arm, and it tells your skeletal muscle. So the skeletal muscle cells have a way of absorbing this RNA, and it does not affect the DNA. It affects the ribosomes and the RNA manufacturing plant inside the cell. So when people say it's going to affect my DNA, it's not affecting your DNA. It's affecting the ribosomal complex inside the cell, which is not in the nucleus. It's outside the nucleus, which is outside the area where the DNA is contained. If RNA is absorbed into the cell, that software RNA tells the ribosome to make the spike protein. The spike protein is then made inside the cell, which then is then delivered to the exterior of the cell and produced into the bloodstream, which presumably antibodies will see it as foreign, attack it, and form an antibody antigen complex. So it's a very different way of causing the antibody antigen complex forming regarding an infection, because it's actually being produced by your own body. This particular RNA delivery system is telling your cell, which is not being infected by a virus, but by RNA per se, to make this spike protein. When the spike protein then is what presumably is causing problems for people and creating blood clots, and supposedly it causes a platelet P4 activation system to occur, and that causes blood clots. So that's what we understand now. Now, knowing that, in this entire topic being so controversial, and there are other vaccines, the Sputnik vaccine, which is in Russia, that uses adenovirus 5 and 26, two separate injections, two separate adenoviruses. That's similar to the Johnson & Johnson or Janssen vaccine. Then you also have the AstraZeneca. Now, AstraZeneca uses a chimpanzee viral vector. It does not use adenovirus. So it's a chimpanzee viral vector, where the adenovirus vector is something that has been used before. The chimpanzee viral vector has not. So that's AstraZeneca, and that is a consortium, I believe, of Swedish and British European corporations. So we don't have that in America. AstraZeneca does not exist in America, to my knowledge. It has not been released for public consumption in America. It's being shipped overseas. I think they're sending a dose or two to folks in India and wherever, but we're really not involved with that as practitioners. We see 3 vaccines. Those 3 vaccines are the 3 that you hear about in the news: Johnson & Johnson, which is Janssen, Moderna, and Pfizer. So that gives you a little information about the vaccine. I'm not getting into all the controversial information that you hear about in the alternative news or different podcasts or Joe Rogan talking about the vaccine and what it does to people and causes problems. There are problems with it. There have been 3,700 deaths the CDC has ascribed to use of the vaccine, and there's probably at least double of those that are side effects. I have seen side effects related to the Pfizer vaccine. I have seen that in my own office, not from my stash of vaccine, but from other people getting the vaccine and then having a problem and coming to see me. And I've seen severe headache that occurred in a woman for 10 days that we thought might have been a sinus thrombosis in the brain, which it was not. And then the second was Bell's palsy in a young gentleman. That's basically flaccidity of the face. Half his face was basically paralyzed from the use of the vaccine. So that is some information there. I think that you might want to digest and experience more information by listening to others and doing your reading and research. And I think that's important. But I'm just giving you a little bit of sampling of what I'm seeing out here in Miami Beach and giving you some updates on what to see on the horizon. I think on the horizon we're seeing, in my community at least, there is a lessening of the pandemic. The rules and restrictions are becoming a little less severe, more relaxed. We're seeing people, I'd say 1 out of 7 people probably are wearing masks outside. Inside, they're still wearing them, but not all the time. The CDC has just made some enormous shifts in their thinking. They believe that the pandemic is waning faster than they anticipated. I believe that they probably attribute it to the vaccine. So we'll see. We might actually have a period of time during the summer, which I mentioned earlier. People are going to start to really come out, and I think the healthy activities and being in the sunshine, fresh air, obviously exercise, all of this is going to improve people's health. And those that probably have gotten sick, vast majority of people have been exposed to the virus by now. Those who have gotten sick will stay sick for a period of time, like myself. I'm still recovering. So there's a number of people that are sick, but the vast majority of people who are not the long haulers have recovered. They had either asymptomatic or mild to moderate reaction to the virus. Those people probably don't have to worry too much. The long haulers, the people that have been, fairly severely impacted by the virus, there's a potential of getting secondary infections or even getting a second totally unique new infection of COVID, which has happened. So there's things we don't know. Myself, I'm suffering the hip problem because of the treatment that I used during COVID. So, and the pneumonia, it was there and now it's improved, but it still caused some damage to the lungs. So we'll see. But anyway, I'm going to sign off now, and I think that if there's any questions or comments or concerns that you have, you can always reach out to us here at the clinic, 305-672-4733, and you can reach us at clinic@halllongevity.com. Thank you, and have a great week.